The OnePlus 6T has been out for around 2 months now, and that's pushed the very similar, yet now technically one generation old OnePlus 6 down to around £300 to £350 on the used market, sitting with the likes of the Pixel 2 XL, Xiaomi Mi 8 and iPhone 7. And considering the OnePlus 6 isn't even a year old yet, at that price it makes sense that it fits in the used market. But should you buy it over its alternatives? Today we're going to find out. Hey guys, my name is Ryan Thomas with Failtech, and this is the OnePlus 6. Should you still buy one? I want to talk about the design and build because OnePlus's famous aluminium chassis disappeared here with the 6, and even after 6 months the glass back on the 6 is just too much of a fingerprint magnet, so a skin is something I recommend, like the one we have on this device. The rounded back and ergonomically fitting side rails combine to create a really nice feeling in the hand. It feels about as premium as when it was first released, and I guess the size of the handset contributes to this because it isn't the smallest by any means. And just from the back, the fingerprint scanner placement is awesome, just below the dual camera bump. The headphone port along with the Type-C port is featured on the bottom, and the media buttons are opposite each other. Not my favourite configuration, but not bad nonetheless, since you even get a silent and vibrate toggle at the top on the right side. The overall design of the 6 is minimal and pretty, no excessive camera bumps, nor flamboyant colour schemes, nor funky patterns, just a typical glass sandwich slab. But with the omission of something that feels pretty much deliberate. In fact, two things: wireless charging and IP rating. In a world where every glass phone sports both of them, it can be hard to justify the delicate material, as whilst it can look pretty, it's incredibly susceptible to damage. But it looks good, so there's a plus. Get it? OnePlus. Now the English protection rating is something I personally miss. I feel like it's a staple and is required at least on a 67 level or 67 level on pretty much any high-end flagship. Of course this one here didn't get the official protection rating, but it is rumoured that the OnePlus 6 is slightly weather resistant, although not official, and meaning that you can use it out in the rain and it really shouldn't damage it at all, which is something that's nice to know, but it would be nice to have the peace of mind with a really new phone to have that English protection rating. And with the overall tapered and thin design of the OnePlus 6, you'd kind of expect a small battery. And 3300 mAh isn't huge by any means, especially not for the size of that display up front, but a combination of optimization of Oxygen OS and the rapid battery refills of Dash Charge means that if you don't get all day battery, you're more than likely going to make it all day with a quick top up at around lunchtime. I personally don't do a lot of gaming on my phone, unlike a lot of people with OnePlus devices, and so I often find that I didn't need to top up to achieve that full day at all. But as with all smartphone battery recommendations, and especially used ones, your mileage may vary. I generally rank the battery a 6 out of 10 on the used unit. It's not going to blow you away, but it's also not so underwhelming that you're going to have to discard it as an option. Performance is quite the opposite. OnePlus 6's spec sheet is stacked, even for the base unit we have here, sporting a Snapdragon 845, 6GB of RAM and a 64GB non-expandable storage as a minimum. The results are truly awesome. This is the fastest phone I have ever used alongside my iPhone 10, and it does indeed put the Pixel 2 XL to shame. Oxygen OS just feels that much cleaner than stock, and the optimization along with the aesthetic make zipping through the OS, multitasking and even being in the settings app fun experiences for me. Playing games is a similar story. Fortnite ran like butter, and the same with PUBG, Asphalt and Real Racing. If you're a gamer looking for performance on a budget, you should definitely consider this alongside the Pocophone F1. And because the display is only 1080p, the Adreno 630 can push higher frame rates, making for an even smoother experience. Mentioning that display, it is the best 1080p panel on the market in my opinion. It's a near 6.3 inch 19:9 AMOLED unit with a high enough pixel density for some crispy usage. Everything from fine text to YouTube videos to the camera viewfinder all look great on this panel. It's pretty large, dwarfing a lot of mainstream phones from just a year before the release, and that won't be everyone's cup of tea, but if you want the best without paying a load of money, you will not be disappointed with the OnePlus 6. It's bright, colourful, contrasty and vibrant too, with some minimal bezels. The notch is a little bit of an eyesore for some and doesn't look anything like the 6-month younger counterpart, but as someone who doesn't mind the notch, this is a non-issue for me. The chin is a little bit distracting to some, but it's small enough to actually have more of an advantage than a disadvantage, since you don't have to strain your thumb so hard reaching the space on the keyboard. Full screening YouTube videos fills the screen, including the notch, which is something I personally like, and that's kind of satisfying, but that's a personal thing, and it's also subjective. Let's talk cameras. We have two on the back of the OnePlus 6, namely a 16 megapixel f1.7 setup with optical image stabilization and a secondary 20 megapixel f1.7 setup for depth mapping and for grabbing more information. The same setup as the one on the newer OnePlus 6T. These sensors work together to produce some really great images and videos. Sharpness is definitely up there as the 16 megapixel sensor captures more pixels on average, and that reflects in the images. Dynamic range has been improved with software updates to compete with the likes of the Pixels and the iPhones of recent, and I feel like the OnePlus 6 hangs up there with the big boys. Maybe not quite on the same level, but pretty close. Video looks stable enough, and at UHD 60 frames per second too. We also get 1080p at 240 frames per second for slow motion, and for good measure they even added 720p at 480 frames per second, which loses some sharpness for some more fluidity. Switching to that selfie camera, we see a 16 megapixel f2.0 setup with the ability to shoot 1080p video at 30 frames per second. The electronic stabilization is pretty good, though we've seen a lot of selfie cameras sporting great stabilization recently, and the overall image quality looks good in good light. Even low light isn't the worst in the world, but I just prefer that lens to be a tad wider. You're not missing out on much using this smartphone camera versus any newer ones on newer models, and in the camera app you get that typical carousel layout with plenty of options. However, I still find LG's and Samsung's camera apps to be much better in terms of versatility and usefulness. As a general rule, you're not missing out on the camera on the OnePlus 6T compared to buying the OnePlus 6, so if camera is something you're really concerned about, you don't have to be with this comparison. Next, I want to cover some extras like fingerprint scanners, wireless connectivity, and other things like that, as they're all important to day-to-day use. Port selection is standard, and the dash charge adapter and cable included in the box are really fast, and even though you lack in-box earbuds, you do of course get the port, which is something you can't say for a lot of phones. Wi-Fi and 4G speeds kept up with my iPhone 10, and the fingerprint scanner on the back is super quick and well placed in my opinion. Sure, we miss out on expandable storage, but we do get dual SIM trays, which is awesome. But the main disappointment here has to be the speaker arrangement, because you get a bottom tinny firing single, so no stereo speakers whatsoever, and that can be pretty harsh. I get it, we've got a mid-range phone and we've got a headphone port, so we're kind of asking for a lot here. Except for there are some cheap phones with decent, even mono front firing speakers that just sound that much better because they're facing the front, and it's just something we miss on the OnePlus 6. The best part of a OnePlus device in my opinion has to be the software. You get near stock in the sense of no bloatware, but with the customizability that hardcore enthusiasts want, and timely software updates that many buy Pixels for. This is the best implementation of Android Pie in my opinion. Due to all of this, and just down to the software alone, I feel like the OnePlus 6 will last a good 3 to 4 years. You get a great set of cameras, awesome hardware, and some of the best software available. For around £350, I'd take this over any of its competition. And that's about it from me guys. That's a clear recommendation from me. You should still go and buy the OnePlus 6. In fact, Katie went and bought one. It's fantastic. The OnePlus 6 is a stunning phone, and if you really want most of what the OnePlus 6T delivers, but just minus that price, the OnePlus 6 is going to be a great option for you. Anyway, that's been it from me. Please do like, dislike, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. Hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank my patrons. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for your amazing continued support. And if you want to see any of my social media, which I recommend heading and checking, or also checking out my Discord, there will all be links in the video description as always. Anyway guys, I've been Ryan Thomas with Failtech, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.